we've tried the rejection and adoption. Then we have a motion to continue it. And then we can have a motion or request to have a CPI increase brought back.
On the current,
So it would be a separate 218 process. We would have to go through that process again. The only difference between this one and that one, obviously other than the rates, would be that we already have the analysis of our expenses and what our rates are. So doing the CPI adjustment to that would be simpler. You still have the cost of all the noticing and printing and all that, and you still have the prescribed time period for the notice and public hearings. But at this point, if we want to go forward with something like that, the board needs to motion for that to go forward. But it really starts with whether or not you guys want to continue to discuss this particular rate scenario. We can continue it, and we can bring back something the CPI, or we can bring back something from based on Director Baker's rates that can be tied to our actual expenses.
These can all be brought back. 3 of them, 2 out of 3, 1 out of 3. Another idea. It doesn't have to be.
well, what's your anticipated cost of looking at mine and,
The CPI?
no, not the CPI.
Oh,
but
yours?
my rate structure.
We would have to ask the consultant.
It's a minimum of $2,000 just to get through the noticing period with the printing, postage, and all that. It's probably a few $1,000s at the high end for the consultant to analyze your rate and tie it back to our expenses.
Because my revenue is very close to what they came out with.
Right.
So I don't see really what the problem is in terms of,
So the way the rates are developed is that the consultant looks at all of our expenses.
Right.
And all of those expenses are grouped into different categories, whether it's administrative, operational, maintenance, and then those are given a percentage of that cost that's in the fixed charge and that cost that's in the volumetric charge. The volumetric charge generally is those fees or those charges that we have that are variable. So the cost of power is dependent on how much water we pump. So that would be a variable charge.
right.
So they look at it in that aspect, and they can take the same sort of formulas that we've used for this rate study and apply the higher base charge to that and put together something that can be defended in court. But it may not be a couple $1,000s, it might be a couple $100. I don't know right now. I'm gonna have to talk to them and see how long it's gonna take them to do it. But basically, at the end of it, we need to have the analysis saying that what we're charging has a connection to what would actually cost us.
Right, so whether we keep our current deal and add a CPI to it, we're still gonna have to do a 218. Or if we were to look at mine, it would still require a 218.
Any increase other than the one we already did a 218 for will require a new 218.
Okay. Well, I'm personally done with the one we currently have, didn't pass twice. You know, we've been kicking this thing down the road for almost, 9 months. So I would either look at the current rate with a new CPI or get a bid from the consultant on what it would take to bring mine up to a standard that could stand, a legal challenge.
Do we have an under director that supports bringing those back at the next meeting?
Whatever Director Baker wants, that's what I want.
So Director Baker and Director Davis are asking for the current rates with the CPI increase and Director Baker's rates to come back at a future meeting to discuss. You want just to see the rates to discuss moving forward with the 218 for each of those? Is Is that the goal?
You want to bid from the consultant on how much it'll cost to actually to review his rates and tie them in.
Okay, so you don't want it to be ready to go out, you want to just know how much it costs.
Right, I mean, it's gonna be, it's gonna be like 30 grand or something.
Oh, it's not going to be that much.
And we can bring back the discussion of what it takes to do the CPI increase and what that looks like. As for the current structure, do you want to bring it back? Or not?
Bring in the current structure, the one we just
This
voted.
scenario, yes, the one that's on the agenda, the agendized structure.
We don't want to see that anymore.
Well, it will continue to be on the agenda until you guys, the majority of you
What do you have to say
reject
about
it.
that? So we don't have a choice then? The status it is now, we don't have a choice. 'Cause
So it's all,
majority-
we're bringing them all back.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Director Kelly,
Yeah, we need you to vote to continue it though. Are we gonna end up
want to know
this way
if
again?
he wants to bring the current.
Just to continue it. So we've had a vote to reject, we've had a vote to adopt. Does anybody want to vote to continue it?
I'll vote to continue it, lay it out directly in front, at the front of the other alternatives, because that's what I would like. So that way then it's fully transparent.
So we have
That'd be a
a
continuation.
motion to continue it
Yeah.
to June 27th.
Or sooner, if we want, I really would even just like to have even a special meeting to get it, if we get it done. I don't.
We need a date certain.
Okay, then it would have to be June, whatever.
Don't worry, I'll be here sooner than you think.
I know it will.
Yeah, motion on the floor to continue to June 27th?
We have a second.
27th, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That way there, we can let the people know. Get them involved.
Is there a second?
You want to second that, Mr. Yates?
Yeah, I'll second.
So first by Director Calvin, second by Director Davis.
Let's have a vote. Director Calvin?
Yes.
Director Davis?
Yes.
Director Baker?
No,
Director Gregory?
What exactly am I voting on?
To continue this item to June 27th,
Sure,
Yes.
bring it back.
Just this item?
just to continue this item to June
So the
27th.
other ones would come back anyway. This is whether or not this is going to continue to come back or not.
Yes, I want this to be continued
Okay,
with
Gregory.
the other ones, yes.
Director Smiley?
Yes.
Passes 4-1, 0 absence.
Thank you. So your proposed, so in the next, in June, we'll have three different scenarios?
So we'll have this one and we'll have the cost for our current rates with the CPI increase or
Okay.
Director Baker's rates.
Well, the CPI will need rate studies, so we can just bring that for you to look at and see what that looks like. And the different options related to it. And the legalities associated with it. So that one will be more on the table than
Okay,
one of them, if we're just figuring out what it costs to draw the nexus.
okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, I think we're through with that. Item 3, adopt revisions to the district water and wastewater billing policy, resolution 2024-02. Recommend review and approve by 3/5 vote.
So I recommend that you take public comment and table it until June 27th.
Any public comment, please approach the lectern. Seeing none. Okay.
Consensus to table it until.
Yes, sir.
I just have a question. No, please.
I'm a resident, my name is Kim. I just had a question. The last time that we were here and we were talking about both of them, did you guys then go and talk about both of them together? Just you guys? Did you guys talk about it and discuss it? Or you guys didn't discuss any of it?
In closed session, you mean?
In closed session? I mean, was it discussed?
No, not close.
It's
Okay.
not legal for us to do that.
Oh,
Okay, well, you guys just said that you weren't here, right?
And I was not here.
Okay, so you guys said you guys were gonna take the other one, you guys were gonna look at it, you were gonna talk about it, and then we hear that today too. I just wanted to make sure you guys didn't look at it.
So they haven't met since the second.
Okay,
And they haven't discussed it since the second.
okay,
I think this was the discussion,
okay, thank you.
because it has to be done publicly.
Got it, that's what I'm learning.
So we have a consensus to table it. Table
Yes.
number 3.
Yes. Everyone?
Yeah.
Davis?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wanted to put it in
I know,
file
we're
13.
continuing it, or do we have
All right,
consensus?
do I have a yes or no?
Or to table it?
I shook my head yes.
He did.
Well, I can't hear a shake of it now.
Well,
All right. On to item 4, approve resolution 2024-21 authorizing the abatement of weeds within the district boundaries, review and approved by 3/5 vote.
Good evening. So suggested action is to adopt resolution 2024-21, authorizing the fire chief to have weed abatement work performed as per Exhibit A of this document. And just a synopsis, San Miguel Community Service District is authorized to take necessary abatement action where property owners, after proper notification, fail to abate their nuisance caused by accumulation of weeds on their properties in accordance with Health and Safety Code Section 14875. We did send out notification. We did a broad scale notification to everybody who had a water bill received notification. Then we created a list. That list was sent out on April 26th. There was 341 notices that were sent out. And today, May 23rd, 2024, is a time to hear consideration for objections. We did send another mailer out. It was only 108 properties that have not conformed, and they have until June 3rd to comply. So the list of lots is attached as Exhibit A, and those are the lots that have not complied will be abated by the district after June 3rd. And then there's another list that will be presented at the June 27th meeting, 2024. And the public will have a chance to object to any abatement practices that happened at that time. Typically, we narrow it down and we end up with 9 properties, 10 properties throughout the entire community that require abatement. This year, we did get feedback, contact from Union Pacific Railroad, and they are unfortunately unable to come and do their abatement, but they are willing to have our abatement contractor abate their weeds for them, and they will directly compensate the district. That's the first time that's ever happened in the history of my knowledge. So that's a huge milestone. There might be a few more properties that we're going to be able to abate and receive compensation from Union Pacific. We have their contact, and they request we send the billing directly to them, and they're comfortable with the $100 administration fee that goes along with it. We do not fine anybody. We do not have the ability to fine. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Anybody? Director Baker?
Well, just making sure I'm not on the list.
Good job.
I don't see a particular property that's out on the terrace. It's a rather large parcel. I know that's caught fire before.
Particular block down the terrace that caught fire before.
Back to the house burnt.
So our abatement is only to the fence line. So if that's an easement, that might be Caltrans or something like that, beyond their property line, if they have a fence enclosed, we can't force them to abate by our contractor. They have to do it on their own. We can't go onto their property if it has a gate.
I understand that, but you're asking for all these property owners to abate their weeds, and that should be one of them. It's a very large parcel.
They should have been on the initial contact list.
Like to see what you want.
So this is just the list that the district would abate on their own. There may be a much larger list of notices that go out.
Okay.
Yeah, there was.
There's 108 that are out currently.
So how does that work then, when there's a property?
We do another inspection, and if the weeds aren't abated by June 3rd, then we start cutting the weeds on our own. If they show up before our abatement crews show up and they do their abatement, then
I understand that, but what about properties that are enclosed, like you were saying? That
It's up to the property owner to do their own due diligence and clear their weeds. If there's a fire and damages are to properties that are adjacent, it's their responsibility.
You could obtain an inspection and abatement warrant, but you have to go through the court to do that.
That's,
And
yeah.
it costs around $5,000 every time you do it.
And you're going to Fourth Amendment rights and people's property rights and code enforcement.
Yeah, because I want to say that it was San Luis Obispo County normally that would require the perimeter fencing to at least disc the perimeter on large parcels, at the very least.
We have that written in our ordinance where it's recommended that they disc their parcel and they chop it up into 5-acre plots to prevent fire spread, but we cannot force them to do that.
Okay,
But it is recommended. There's a few parcels on the terrace that have that condition.
right. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Calvins?
No, I don't have anything.
Dr. Davis?
Yeah, Scott, if you guys go in and do the weed abatement for different properties that don't, do you contract that out, or do you have any idea? Let's say I got a acre of land there, you know, and now who are you figure on contracting to go in and do the weed abatement?
We sent out the mailers and they've been notified. This would be the third notification, so we've done our due diligence with notification. We don't go knocking on doors. Typically, the properties that get abated aren't residents.
Yeah, right.
They're abandoned property or vacant properties that don't have fences that we could actually, bring equipment through and abate it. There's properties that are along the railroad, vacant parcels, in different locations. We're not typically going door to door and abating.
Well, yeah, I know
weeds
that.
in front of a 1-acre lot.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm directing,
He's
like,
asking who are you contracting?
Wait a minute.
you said contact.
No, he didn't.
Well, we had a contract.
Would you like to take a
Please
seat on the
don't shut
board?
up from the audience, please. Thank you.
Yeah, who?
We put out a notice for contractors, sorry, I thought you said who am I contacting to
Oh,
do
no.
the abatement, so I couldn't hear you,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we put out a notice for contractors to apply to perform the abatement, and we received the applications. Once the applications are received, the lowest bidder gets the job.
Right. Well,
And no JK Landscaping did not apply for it.
they the ones with the hot rod?
Yes,
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago?
Yes,
That
sir.
guy was a nut.
yes, sir.
He wants.
Was that your question, sir?
Yeah, I just want to know who's going to do it if you know, or
Until the 24th.
you got,
They have until tomorrow to submit their paperwork.
okay.
But I have not received any information from JK Landscaping. I think they've lost interest. Some of the larger landscape companies don't want to come into the area just because we have such a small amount
Yeah.
of properties to do, and for them to pay their employees what they pay their employees to perform abatement in other districts or other cities, it's more valuable for them to just spend their time in the other areas. So we tend to get small contractors that are out there doing it.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, public comment, please approach the lectern and sign in. Anybody? Okay.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question, sir.
Oh, that's okay.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-2, I'm sorry, -21, for the abatement of weeds within district boundaries.
I'll second.
Have a motion on the floor by Director Smiley to approve Resolution 2024, second by Director Baker. Have a vote. Director Gregory?
Yes.
Director Davis?
Yes.
Director Baker?
Yes.
Director Calvin?
Yes.
Director Smiley?
Yes.
Passes 5-0, no absence.
Thank you, directors.
Thank you, Scott. Item 5, discussion on street lining and landscaping powers within the district.
So at the last meeting, it was requested that we agendize a discussion item to go over the specific powers held by the district relating to street lighting and landscaping. And this came from an approval to do some improvements on landscaping along Mission Street. And there seemed to be some confusion on whether the district was allowed to do that and who owned the property. And it became a discussion of what exactly the district's powers are. And you guys wanted to be able to have kind of an open discussion about that, to be able to ask Kelly questions or staff questions or legal questions. And so I believe it was Director Baker that asked for it to be agendized, but that Director Calvin also has some interest in this subject. So we agendized it.
Okay. Director Baker?
Yeah, I guess to just give some information of, what authority we have and what can we do. We wanted to, add landscaping along the streets or something to, kind of beautify the downtown section a little bit.
Yeah, so pursuant to the government code and your approvals under LAFCO, landscaping is specifically something that the district can do. You can acquire property for landscaping purposes. You can't require parks or recreation areas. It has to be specifically for landscaping, so beautifying the area would definitely fall under things that the district can do. You can beautify your own landscaping. You can come to agreements with the county to beautify their landscaping that's within your district, because as I understand, they won't take care of it. So that's been a long-standing issue. They say they don't have the funding or the employees to do so, and so the district has been taking care of some of that. But certainly it's within your power to do any kind of landscaping on your own property as well.
So on the east side of, I guess, Mission, do we have any rights to any of the property along that strip?
So up to, if you drew a line from the curb or the gutter at the fire station and went all the way north, connected that to the 14th Street intersection, there's a large section of that dirt area that is the right-of-way. And then it becomes private property. So we could conceivably do landscaping in the county right-of-way with easements from the county. But as far as I understand, we can't do hardscaping, so we can't do sidewalks and things like that. But we could plant trees, or we could plant other vegetation generally in public property, county right-of-way, other roadway, other, quote-unquote, prior public properties.
So why can't we do sidewalks and additional parking?
We had this conversation last night, if I can interject really
Sure,
quick.
please.
So the county has no funding for curb gutter sidewalk improvements, and they will not fund or find funding. It's up to the property owner when they do a project development to fund the curb gutter and sidewalk improvements. So that entire strip that Mr. Dodds is referring to is private property, and it's owned by somebody who they're trying to sell it, and they do have a plan for it. The curb gutter and sidewalk would be a condition of use for those parcels. If you developed one parcel in the middle, you would put curb gutter and sidewalk in the middle. If you did the whole strip, you would be required to do the whole strip. I would caution you that if you decided to put plants in that right-of-way, that county right-of-way, they're going to get taken out when development comes, or you could put a tree in there that's going to need to be removed. We had that condition south of the fire station where we have those large eucalyptus trees. When the curb gutter sidewalk improvements go in there, those eucalyptus trees are going to have to come out. Probably the same holds true to the trees that are on the east side of Mission Street and the property that Mr. Dodds is referring to. There's some oak trees there. They would more likely have to come out eventually in future development. So it might be not the best expenditure of funds to dress that dirt up in that manner, especially if you had to put in irrigation to service that. And I think I went well beyond my purview. I'm the fire guy, sorry.
So my understanding is that curb gutter and sidewalk is a function of roads. We don't have roads. Hopefully we never have roads. But the extent of our ability to landscape would be within the developed portions of a parklet or median or something like that, or like on Mission Street where they have a separation between the curb and the inner sidewalk, or inner sidewalk and outer sidewalk. So theoretically, we could landscape the right-of-way on the east side of Mission Street without putting curb gutter sidewalk in. But that would be up to or subject to the county allowing us to do that. To Mr. Young's point, there's a lot of infrastructure that would have to be put in to facilitate really even getting to the point where you're putting the curb gutter or sidewalk, or just even the sidewalk in. Although there is a plan for that stretch of Mission Street, if the developer decides to change it and we spent, $500,000 putting a sidewalk in, they could come and go, well, that's not where I want the sidewalk, and pay the voucher for it. Or we could have just made $500,000 to help a developer develop his property and get no return out of that. It's been, the east side of Mission Street's kind of gone around and around. There's a lot of desire to have that side of Mission Street built out. I personally would like to see it built out. I think it would add a lot to the town. Early estimates several years ago to put water and sewer and do just the water and sewer infrastructure from the fire station to 14th Street and all the interconnects that would have to happen was close to $1 million. So if you're going to responsibly put hardscaping in, you really need to think about the underground infrastructure and what's going to be put in. On a project like that, it's very difficult to say, this is exactly what's going to happen. And I can give you an example of the city of San Luis did that. They went through in older parts of town, redid the water mains, put in a whole bunch of fire line laterals and stubbed them to where they thought the building fire lines would go. Well, the reality is like half of them had to be dug up and capped off because they weren't in a place that was even usable. So you have a lot of money that just goes down the toilet. So, although we can expand our landscaping, basically at this point, the board, through previous action, has limited the scope of landscaping to Mission Street on the west side between 11th and 14th Street and to Gateway Monuments. So if the board would like to expand that, then we'd be more than happy to bring something back to that effect. It is possible that at some point the county gets another grant to build more curb gutter sidewalk or facilitate landscaping somehow. Most likely that would come back to the district for the district to take that on too.
So question, so the street lighting department has a restricted reserve of $773,000. So what is that restricted to? What could that, what are the restrictions on that money?
Restricted funds are all for capital projects, so either capital improvements, adding streetlights, adding landscaping, replacing streetlights or landscaping. I don't think mining really needs any equipment, but if it had to buy equipment or other facilities, then you would do that out of the restricted funds.
Okay. And we've got $210,000 in operational reserves, and then we have another $259,000 in operational cash. So total we're about $1.2 million. Is that in the lighting, street lighting department?
Probably something close to that.
It's a lot of money.
So there's been a lot of projects proposed over the past 10 or so years to improve street lighting throughout town. Previous boards had a lot of pushback on where street lighting could be, not wanting it in certain areas. Some of those things would be identified in the lighting master plan as far as those previous projects that were not completed or did not move forward. And part of what had been a stumbling block before is that most of the streetlights in this town, other than the 24 that are on Mission Street, are owned and operated by PG&E. So they're owned by PG&E, they were put in by PG&E, and we pay them a monthly fee basically for the power and maintenance of those lights. Previously, PG&E had been going through a lot of changes in the process to get new streetlights throughout town was stymied because they weren't moving forward with any of those type of projects. every once in a while it kind of comes back up and we try to push a little bit harder, but we've been unsuccessful so far getting new streetlights from PG&E. Part of the problem, or not really a problem, actually, part of the issue with new streetlights is that now everything has to be undergrounded. So if it's not a existing pole, then the power needs to be underground to that pole, which drives the cost up. So where you might be able to get a light on an existing pole for a couple $1,000s, a light on a freestanding steel light pole underground, half a block might be $100,000. But as with all capital projects, it's up to the board to move some of them forward through board action. So.
Question that I have is anything that's a new subdivision project that's the developer that's going to be paying for the landscaping, sidewalks, and lighting, correct?
So part of the reason that the board was so narrow on its scope for landscaping was to prevent new developments from coming in and the district inadvertently taking over their landscaping. So a new development like Jazzy Town or, well, People's Self-Help Housing doesn't have any landscaping, but like Mission Gardens doesn't have landscaping. Mission Heights and Mission Meadows, those 3 tracts have landscaping and their HOAs pay for that landscaping to maintain it, to put it in, to replace it. The developer pays for it initially. So just like streetlights, the developer pays for those initially. However, when a development comes through, they put all the streetlights in, they put them into PG&E standard, and then we take over the responsibility for payment for those on a monthly basis. But it doesn't cost the district anything to put them in because the developer's paying that.
Director Callis.
First off, thank you, Mr. Dodds, for your presentation. I greatly appreciate it. As a person who's lived in this community my entire life, I can tell you one thing, that summers are very hot here. And when he tells you otherwise, maybe if you live in Phoenix. The expansion of landscaping is something that we could look at, something that I would honestly support, because as a properly developed tree canopy would actually help cool the community by up to 20 degrees, depending on how well the canopy is developed, which would reduce electricity costs to the residents of this community. There's been several decades worth of studies regarding that. Quite frankly, over the years, this town, some people think that, weeds and illegal dumps, qualifies as landscaping, and I think it looks awful that way. I think that we should be investing in our community, making sure that it's a welcoming place for our residents, and that people can feel that our community is beautiful. There's other areas I think I've talked about, and we even had a brief conversation at the board level about certain landscaping projects. We're going like even around 10th Street as well, around the 10th and 15th Street. So